Welcome to episode 60. I can't believe I'm saying episode 60 of the Girl About the Globe podcast. I hope that you've enjoyed previous episodes in season 4, where I'm trying to inspire you to visit different destinations and show you how to travel alone around them. For this particular episode, I'm covering a country that is very popular, and it is Mexico. So if you've ever wanted to visit Mexico, whether it's Mexico City, Cancun, or Tulum, then I hope that this episode inspires you and helps you plan a trip to Mexico. Stay tuned.
Welcome to Girl About the Globe, a podcast for you, the solo female traveller, empowering women to travel solo with maximum adventure, minimum impact.
So I went to Mexico about 5 years ago actually, which is quite a long time. The Foreign Office does advise to not travel to certain destinations, so I do recommend before you go to Mexico, just check which areas it's okay to travel to and not to travel to. I spent about 11 days in Mexico. So Mexico is located under the USA and just above Guatemala and Belize. When people do their Central American itinerary, they either start from Mexico or go all the way up and they can end in Mexico. So I spent 11 days in Mexico. I spent 5 days in Mexico City. Before I went, I was a bit intrepid because I heard that Mexico City can be quite dangerous. But the area that I stayed in was really safe. There's a really funky little area called Condesa, which is a little trendy place with a bohemian vibe. It's got lots of alfresco cafes. The place that I stayed, I think it was called Zona Rosa, which was a really safe place. And they had cafes and bars from there as well. So I spent 5 days in Mexico City. I then took a plane, because Mexico is quite big. I flew with Viva Mexico across to Cancun, which is part of the Riviera Maya. So this area, because it's quite touristy, is quite a safe area to travel to. I know some people that have gone from Mexico City down to Oaxaca, and they said that's a really lovely area and very Mexican. So I flew from Mexico City to Cancun with Viva Mexico, which are a really cheap airline. I then stayed in Cancun for 3 nights. From Cancun, it's really easy to travel. There's buses called ADO buses, ADO buses. So I took the bus from Cancun down to Playa del Carmen, and I think it took about an hour and a half maximum. And then I spent 3 nights in Playa del Carmen. If you like partying, it's a really great place. I loved it. And it was the place where I met the most people that I met in Mexico. Playa del Carmen, it's got a lot of bars and restaurants. And yes, it is touristy. But if you're going to Mexico by yourself, say you've done the cultural areas and you just want to meet people and socialise, Playa del Carmen's a really good place to socialise. And then from there, I took a bus for an hour down to Tulum. It has the ruins on the beach, and it also has a lot of yoga places. So it's quite a laid back vibe and a nice place to just relax. Then from there, I travelled south down to Chetumal, which is on the border from Mexico to Belize. And then I caught the tiny boat to Belize to the Ambergris Key. If you do go overland or overland over water from Mexico to Belize, it's a very bumpy ride, but you can get from Chetumal to Ambergris Key in Belize. Things not to miss in Mexico. In Mexico City, there's so many museums. You could easily spend 5 days there. There's so much to learn about. You've got the Mayans and the Aztecs. Mexico City was actually founded in 1325, and it's the oldest city on the American continent. It's also one of the most populated in the world. So as you fly over, it's very densely populated and there's buildings everywhere. But it's a great place to visit for museums. They've also got a zoo. I don't normally endorse zoos, but this one's, I think it's an ethical zoo. Something else from Mexico City you can do, I don't know if I'm pronouncing this right, it's called Titachén. It is 50 kilometres outside Mexico City. You can do a tour. It's the largest pre-Columbian site in the Americas. It's an archaeological site and you can easily spend all day there. Then when you go across to the east coast where Cancun is, from there you can visit Holbox, which is a fishing island. You can just visit it for a day. It's called the New Tulum. Apparently, I haven't been, but it is separated from the mainland by a lagoon, and it has flamingos, pelicans and exotic birds. So that's meant to be a really cool place to go. Something you definitely should not miss in Mexico are the cenotes, which are water holes mostly made out of limestone. Apparently there are 5,000 cenotes in the Yucatan Peninsula. They're made from underwater cave systems filled with fresh water. They are just beautiful. They are so tranquil and you can just go swimming in them. If you do go along the coast, there's so many tour companies. You can do tours that combine a cenote trip with an ATV, for example. So you can go quad biking, you can go zip lining as well. And then talking of being active, if you are visiting Mexico between May to mid-August, you can snorkel with whale sharks. I did that from Cancun. I think you can also do it from Playa del Carmen and possibly from Tulum as well. It was one of the most amazing experiences I've ever had. I'm not very confident in the water, but just knowing how laid back whale sharks are and being prepped beforehand, it was just such a lovely experience, just snorkeling with these big placid creatures. They come once a year. It does depend on the amount of plankton that's in the water. It starts in May, but apparently from mid-June to August are the best times. So if you're in Mexico around those times, have a look at doing some tours where you can snorkel with whale sharks, because it is a once-in-a-lifetime experience. Then across from the Riviera, there is Isla Mujeres, and there are express boats that leave every 30 minutes from Gran Puerto Cancun. Also, if you're visiting in November, one really famous festival that Mexico hold is called the Day of the Dead, so Dia de los Muertos. Apparently it's over 2 days, and although the theme is death, the point of the actual festival is to demonstrate love and respect for deceased family members. So they have it in towns and cities throughout Mexico. They're dressed up like skeletons, there's parades and parties, and they make offerings to lost loved ones. So there are 2 things which you can coincide your Mexican trip with, is the whale sharks and the Day of the Dead. Budget for Mexico, if you're staying in hostels and obviously you still want to sightsee, I would say about £25 a day, so looking at maybe $40 a day for your budget. Something they do have is called Coco Bongo, and they have it in Cancun and also Playa del Carmen. It is such a fun experience. I went with people from the hostel, and you get to watch Michael Jackson performers, impersonators from different singers. It's a bit like a cabaret show, but it's an actual club feeling. So you stand up and you feel as though you're in a club and you can dance, but yet you're watching Michael Jackson on a stage. As much as I do love culture, and I can speak a bit of Spanish, if you are going down the coastline from Cancun to Tulum, you can get away with not speaking Spanish really if you don't know any Spanish, because a lot of the restaurants and tour companies speak English. Trisha also mentioned that Uber is super cheap there, and she felt safe in most of the city that was in Mexico City. So Mexico City does get a really bad press, but Mexico City is really big, so it really does depend on the area that you stay in. So I did Mexico City, Playa del Carmen, Cancun and Tulum within 11 days. It is doable. I would just say, just check the Foreign Office website before you go to see which areas. Somebody was asking about driving in Mexico. The bus system's really good in Mexico, so you don't really need to drive. And also at night time, I wouldn't advise driving at night time. I've never driven, I've just taken the buses and also the airports. I personally wouldn't drive. I wouldn't feel comfortable driving in Mexico. I've heard about people getting bribed and stopped by officials. So with the buses being really cheap and really frequent, you can book them online. For me, there's no point in driving. I had all of my vaccinations before I went to Central America. Typhoid, hepatitis A, hepatitis B, possibly rabies. I went without having the rabies jabs because I knew that you have to have one and then you have 2 boosters within a certain period of time. Always make sure, as soon as you know when you're going, go to your nurse in your local health centre and find out what vaccinations you need. Mexico is really nice. The food is so different from the Mexican that we've got in England, and probably the Mexican that you have if you're from the United States, which is more like a Tex-Mex. Mexico food is very spicy. I found Mexico to be really good value. I didn't feel threatened at all. I felt very safe. I met people on tours. I met people mainly in Playa del Carmen Tulum is a gorgeous place to just relax. I would say Mexico is for you if you are a beach girl about the globe, a cultural girl about the globe. You like arts and museums and also ruins. So obviously it's got all of the Mayan history and the Aztec history. There is Chichen Itza. That is obviously something not to miss in Mexico. That's one of the most famous Mayan ruins, and it's also one of the 7 wonders of the world. It is a very touristy area and you can't climb onto the pyramid, but when you're in Mexico you just have to go there. So thank you very much, ladies, and I hope you have a really good evening and overall really good day wherever you are in the world. Take care.
If this podcast episode has inspired you to want to take a trip to Mexico, then you can find out more details with the Solo Travel in Mexico guide on the Girl About the Globe website.
Thanks for listening to our Girl About the Globe podcast, making solo travel easier for you. Find everything that you need for your solo travels at girlabouttheglobe.com, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss an episode.